I never thought I'd feel the warmth of that gentle muzzle against my fingertips again. That was the whispered confession of a dying woman, whose single wish electrified an entire team of hospital workers in the heart of Northumberland. The moment those quiet words reached the ears of a dedicated palliative nurse, they sparked a chain reaction of determination, compassion, and creativity that would become one of the most remarkable stories the staff at Wansbeck Hospital had ever witnessed. How was it even possible to bring a real, live horse to a patient who lay confined to a bed, knowing that her time might be short? And what incredible challenges would the staff overcome to grant a last wish, so touching yet so daunting? Today, we will delve into the story behind an unconditional act of kindness, reveal surprising details you might never expect, and explore how one woman's final desire awakened something powerful in both her family and the entire medical team. Picture a hospital corridor bathed in quiet sunlight, bustling with nurses gently pushing medication carts and greeting patients with hushed kindness. The normal routines of administering care, adjusting pillows, and offering water might seem altogether commonplace. But behind each curtain, behind each pale face resting on a starched pillow, there is an unseen tapestry of hopes, regrets, anxieties, and treasured memories. For one particular patient, named Allison, those memories were woven tightly around the image of a majestic horse, a companion she had shared her happiest hours with in earlier days. When she arrived at Wansbeck Hospital's palliative care ward, Allison confided to the staff that all she truly wished for, before closing the final chapter of her life, was to see a horse once more. The staff could see her eyes light up whenever she mentioned it, that delicate flame of longing that so often exists in those who sense their own ending approaching. But few believed such a dream could actually come true. That was until one particularly compassionate healthcare assistant came forth with a remarkable idea. She had a relative who owned a horse. At first, the notion of bringing an animal, especially one as large and spirited as a horse, onto hospital grounds seemed outlandish. There were safety considerations, legal constraints, and countless logistical hurdles to manage. Vetting protocols, ensuring nobody was at risk, and confirming that the environment itself could handle such an unorthodox visitor demanded thorough conversation. Yet the palliative team, led by a staff nurse named Avril, whose unwavering empathy had become the stuff of legend among her colleagues, believed that honoring Allison's heartfelt longing was worth surmounting every obstacle. "Let us see what we can do," Avril whispered, leaning toward Allison's hospital bed with a gentle smile. To understand why this simple statement carried such weight, one must grasp the essence of palliative care. It is about comfort, dignity, and providing the best possible quality of life, especially when the sands of time are running out. For a patient in her final weeks, a small gesture can feel monumental. So, when the staff said they would do anything to realize her dream, it was not just a figure of speech. It was a promise that would soon ripple throughout the ward and galvanize the hospital community behind a shared mission. And yes, dear listener, we will soon explore how they tackled those logistical nightmares. But before we dive deeper, let us look at the emotional tapestry framing Allison's request. She had spent 5 weeks at Wansbeck Hospital, receiving palliative care for an illness that had confronted her with the stark reality that she had only so much time left. When you think about the final stage of life, you might imagine quiet resignation or fear, but for Allison, a spark of hope still glowed in her wish to see a horse. As soon as the staff realized that spark was keeping her spirits high, they resolved to fan it into a vivid flame. If you are enjoying this incredible journey so far, and you can feel the tension building around the question of, will they manage to bring that horse? Then give a friendly nod. Yes, a virtual thumbs up or a quick message of support goes a long way. It helps all of us remain connected as we traverse this unforgettable tale. Now, let us continue. Visitors to the palliative care ward noticed a change in the air almost immediately. The usual hush was humming with discreet excitement. A new plan had taken shape, one so unorthodox that few dared believe it would come to fruition. The hospital staff began their quest by conferring with the relative who owned the horse. Was the horse docile, easy to handle, and gentle enough to stand calmly near a hospital entrance? The relative responded with enthusiasm, describing how this particular horse was used to calm environments and had a friendly disposition, especially around gentle movements and new people. Next came the practicalities of hospital regulations and risk assessments. The building's layout needed to be examined. Was there a place outside, perhaps near a side entrance, where the patient could come down easily and safely in a wheelchair or on a borrowed mobility scooter? Could the horse be walked in without causing any risk to other patients or staff? Each of these questions was discussed in detail, calling for thorough planning. Yet the staff's determination was unshakable. They knew how important this was for Allison. Even though her family was already preparing for the inevitable, the sons, Jamie and John, could see the joy in their mother's eyes at the hint of a possible meeting between her and a horse. So, the big day arrived with a flutter of nerves. A few members of the palliative care team had assembled in the lobby area near the hospital's front door, awaiting the arrival of a horse. It was a surreal sight. Medical professionals in scrubs, some holding clipboards, others standing by with cameras, all glancing anxiously down the road. Finally, the horse trailer pulled up. A hush fell over the small cluster of onlookers. Even the occasional bustle of visitors slowed, curious about why staff were peering out so intently. When the ramp lowered and the horse stepped out, there was a sense of collective awe. That magnificent living creature, typically at home in open fields, was now about to become part of a pivotal farewell moment for Allison. From her room, Allison could hear the flurry of activity. Nurses approached her bed, helping her into a comfortable position. She was weak, but a radiant expectation lit her features. Her sons hovered protectively, offering to guide her wheelchair if necessary. The staff had arranged for a mobility device to help maintain her independence, and though she grew fatigued swiftly, she insisted on making the journey down the corridor herself. She wanted to be the one who approached the horse, even if it meant moving at a snail's pace. Slowly but resolutely, she inched her way toward the hospital entrance, her breath shallow but her determination unwavering. When Allison caught her first glimpse of the horse, tears of disbelief sparkled in her eyes. That was the moment the staff later described as nothing short of miraculous. She raised a trembling hand to her mouth, as though trying to confirm that this was really happening, that she was not lost in some morphine-induced dream. The nurse standing beside her felt a wave of emotion surge through the crowd. Even those who had been busy checking IV lines or tidying up trays found themselves tiptoeing over just to witness this improbable meeting. Quietly, Allison extended her hand toward the velvety muzzle. The horse, sensing the gentle invitation, leaned forward with surprising delicacy. In that instant, all the sterile white walls seemed to fade away into the background. The beep of monitors, the swish of hospital curtains, and the endless whisper of machinery flickered out of focus, replaced by the soft nicker of a curious animal and the hushed exhalation of a fulfilled life wish. Her sons John and Jamie looked on in wonder, snapping pictures through tearful eyes while Allison laughed in pure, unrestrained joy. Hospital staff gathered around in a loose semicircle to respect their privacy while still bearing witness. Some had never seen a horse up close and were amazed by its size and gentle demeanor. Allison's wrinkled hands stroked the horse's forehead, lingering in the moment as if to memorize every curve of its form. It was a profound reminder of those fleeting experiences that shape our lives. Warm stables in the crisp morning, the earthy smell of hay, the thunder of hooves across open fields. The significance of that encounter did not end with an emotional bridging between patient and horse. By fulfilling Allison's last wish, the hospital staff reaffirmed their mission to see beyond standard medical treatment, to acknowledge that holistic care sometimes includes intangible comforts. In the realm of palliative medicine, there is a deep understanding that psychological and emotional support can be as critical as pain management. Indeed, as one staff member revealed later, we are here to grant dignity, to give hope, and to honor the unique humanity of every patient. For Allison, who had cherished horses for so long, that day was a lifeline to the person she had always been. But the story did not stop there. According to her sons, Allison remained on a euphoric high for days afterward, telling every new nurse who entered the room about the beautiful horse that had visited her. She clutched a small photograph of the event, beaming at anyone who cared to listen. That simple token of happiness helped immensely with her emotional comfort, and some visitors even insisted that her appetite improved briefly. "I fed him carrots," she proudly recalled. "I never thought I would do that again." It was a moment that cut through the gloom and reminded everyone, staff and patients alike, that life's simple pleasures can sometimes offer more healing than any injection or pill. This emotional impact extended far beyond Allison's individual experience. Word spread throughout the hospital wards, inspiring doctors, nurse, and administrators to reconsider how they might accommodate more unusual requests. Could a patient who missed the sea be taken to a nearby beach in a carefully organized outing? Might someone who yearned for the laughter of children be allowed a special visit from a nearby school choir? While these ideas might sound unrealistic at first glance, the success of bringing that horse to visit Allison proved that the hospital's boundaries might be more flexible than anyone had realized. It marked a turning point in how the staff viewed their roles, prompting them to see each patient as a world unto themselves, complete with hidden desires waiting to be honored. Now, after hearing about this heartwarming development, you may find yourself touched by the hospital's compassion. If you feel a sense of renewed faith in humanity, perhaps take a moment to share your thoughts with friends, or offer a supportive comment to show that kindness is still alive and well. That is just a gentle nudge. If you believe small gestures add up to something mighty, you might feel an urge to pass the sentiment along. Now, let us continue, because there is much more to uncover. As we follow the story, we discover that Allison's mobility scooter, yes, the simple device that allowed her to traverse the hospital halls and approach the horse with relative ease, became a symbol in its own right. Her friends and family observed how that scooter granted her freedom even in the bleakest of circumstances. She could roam through the ward, greet staff, visit the small chapel, and even wave goodbye to neighbors she had befriended. Week by week, as her physical strength waned, that treasured scooter provided a modicum of independence, allowing her to direct her own course through the final days of her life. Touched by this experience, her loved ones decided to honor the palliative care ward in a deeply meaningful way. They began pooling their resources to procure another mobility scooter, one that could remain with the ward after Allison passed on. An invaluable tool for future patients who might similarly yearn for some self-directed movement within the confines of hospital corridors. This generosity was a testament to the gratitude they felt for the staff, who not only had managed the clinical aspects of Allison's illness, but had also ventured beyond the call of duty to make her final wish a reality. In the wake of that emotional day, Allison's sons, Jamie and John, shared reflections that would resonate with anyone who has lost a loved one. The pain of anticipating their mother's decline was somewhat softened by the knowledge that she had experienced an eruption of joy at a time when many might expect only sorrow. They recalled the childhood years when their mother had introduced them to horses, those early mornings riding along bridle paths, the gentle snorting of a patient mare, and the sense of trust that formed between rider and horse. Her face lit up like a kid at Christmas, Jamie admitted, describing the moment Allison saw the horse at the hospital entrance. And it was something I will never forget for the rest of my life. Fascinatingly, the presence of an animal in such a solemn setting also seemed to uplift the spirits of other patients on the ward. Some peeked out from behind curtains, curious eyes shining, perhaps reliving memories of their own beloved pets or thinking of simpler days. A sense of camaraderie pervaded the hallways. After all, if a horse could pay a gentle visit to one patient, who was to say what else might be possible? That intangible sparkle of hope and positivity glowed far beyond a single interaction. Avril, the dedicated staff nurse, spoke later about the effect this experience had on the entire care team. "We never know how long we have with our patients," she said, "but we do know that if we can create moments of joy, comfort, and dignity, we must. That is what palliative care means to us. Not just managing symptoms, although that is vital, but also ensuring that the person behind the illness is recognized and celebrated." When we realized how important this was to Allison, we were determined to make it happen, no matter how challenging it might be to coordinate. That was certainly a bold stance, for the hospital staff was not accustomed to managing living creatures outside the realm of therapy dogs, let alone animals that stood many hands high. A few staff members admitted some trepidation about potential unpredictability. After all, a hospital environment can be stressful even for humans, so bringing a horse onto the grounds was a delicate undertaking. But they pushed ahead, mindful that the payoff, Allison's radiant smile, her tears of joy, would be incalculable. Remarkably, the collaboration among the assistant, the relative owning the horse, and the ward's administration ran smoothly. Permits were quickly arranged, and a suitable time with minimal foot traffic was selected to ensure everyone could feel safe. In the days following the visit, Allison grew weaker, but also seemed more at peace. She had revisited a fundamental piece of her identity, her love for horses, and that had emboldened her to face her final stretch of life with an unexpected tranquility. Her interactions with staff took on a warmer tone, filled with anecdotes of past adventures spent tending to her beloved animals. Even the simplest tasks, like reapplying dressing or adjusting medication, became opportunities for her to open up about what it felt like to rest her hand on a horse's flank in a quiet field at dawn. For many of the doctors and nurses used to the typical routines of end-of-life care, these heartening reflections were a precious reminder of why they joined the field in the first place. Time is relentless, however, and soon Allison's condition reached a point of no return. The staff focused on keeping her comfortable while supporting family members who were bracing themselves for the inevitable. Nothing can truly dull the sadness of losing a mother, but Jamie and John confessed that the horse's visit had allowed them a poignant moment of closure. They felt a sense of gratitude that their mother had experienced a slice of genuine happiness, that the light in her eyes had not been extinguished without one last surge of brilliance. Eventually, Allison passed away, enveloped by the quiet hush of the hospital ward, surrounded by photographs of her children, a few mementos from her younger years, and, of course, the treasured images of that final meeting with a horse. For the hospital staff, that event redefined what was possible in palliative care. They gathered afterward to debrief about how everything had transpired, from the logistical hurdles to the abiding impact on staff morale. "We have never felt this sense of collective purpose before," admitted one nurse. "It reminded us that a hospital is not just a place of sickness, but also a place where dreams can be catapulted into reality, even if only briefly." In the months that followed, the staff looked for other meaningful gestures, large or small, that might brighten a patient's day, be it music from local musicians or special outdoor visits. Reflecting on the full breadth of the story, one cannot help but be struck by its simple yet profound message. An act of kindness, no matter how improbable it seems, can transform not only the beneficiary, but also everyone who plays a part. For Jamie and John, it provided a final cherished memory of their mother, a moment to offset some of the gloom of her passing. For the hospital staff, it underscored the essence of why they do what they do: to ease suffering, to bring warmth into cold corners, and to remind us all that even in the midst of life's hardest trials, there can still be moments of beauty and wonder. For the horse's owner, it was undoubtedly a testament to the power of cooperation among people who would never have crossed paths otherwise, but for a single, poignant purpose. Interestingly, local news outlets picked up the story, shining a spotlight on Wansbeck Hospital's willingness to go above and beyond for a single patient. Some cynics argued it was a special case, a one-off that might not be applicable to the everyday demands of a busy healthcare system. But for the compressed universe of that palliative care ward, the ideals behind fulfilling Allison's wish reached far deeper than practical considerations alone. It was about validating the human spirit, about demonstrating that compassion need not be sacrificed on the altar of efficiency, and about proclaiming that a final wish can and should be honored whenever possible. Indeed, the staff would echo that ethics in medicine involves more than just diagnosing and prescribing. It means connecting with the soul behind the patient's eyes. So there you have it, the inside account of a remarkable day when a patient on the brink of saying farewell found one last, exalted connection to the life she adored. She left behind more than memories of gentle hands stroking a horse's mane. She left a legacy of hope, inspiring others to think outside the box of conventional care. Think about the countless individuals around the world who hold similar dreams, dreams that might seem out of reach when confined by corridors of medical machinery. Perhaps this account might spark a conversation in your own circle about how compassion can appear in unexpected forms. And that is the reason we have journeyed through the details of Allison's story, to illuminate the power of forging connections wherever possible, to remind ourselves that the final chapters of life can still hold glimpses of joy. If the raw, uplifting nature of this story has struck a chord in you, consider lending your voice in support of palliative care initiatives, or simply sharing this narrative with those who might need a glimmer of hope in their own trying times. After all, the world can sometimes feel quite divided, and a single act of empathy has never been more necessary. In the end, Allison might not have been a celebrity, but to the nurses at Wansbeck Hospital, she was a beacon of strength and love. She was someone who had shaped her identity around her devotion to horses and refused to let that piece of her inner self be stolen by illness. In fulfilling her wish, the staff served not just as medical professionals, but as carriers of a living testament to what healthcare can aspire to. A place where we do not merely treat ailments, but where we treat people. Even the best technology cannot replace a moment of heartfelt human connection, or the time spent orchestrating a truly uplifting encounter that breathes new meaning into a patient's final days. For her sons, every time they see a horse now, They think of their mother's final smile, those bright eyes, that laughter. In her last weeks on Earth, she had something to look forward to, something that transcended the usual routine of medication, vital checks, and the everyday hush of a hospital ward. Indeed, she departed this life with a soul that was bolstered by kindness, and, in a way, the entire hospital gained something from that. The staff were reminded that their work is not just about charts and numbers. It is about weaving hope into reality, upholding dignity, and bearing witness to moments that define our shared humanity. As you walk away from this story, think about the power of following through on seemingly impossible requests. Reflect on how one woman's love for horses catalyzed a whole team to break down barriers, navigate red tape, and orchestrate a day that would become a cherished memory for everyone involved. Moments like these stand as living proof that empathy, determination, and a bit of creative thinking can make miracles happen. When we talk about medicine, we usually focus on stethoscopes and scalpels, but more often than not, it is the intangible elements of compassion and selflessness that have the greatest impact on a patient's sense of well-being and on our own sense of purpose. This story ends with a simple but resonant truth. When we listen closely to the heartbeat of someone in need, we may unlock a deeper potential for caring than we ever thought possible. Allison's final wish was not merely about meeting a horse. It showcased the boundless capacity for goodness that can emerge under the right circumstances. Let us allow that memory to guide us in how we approach the people around us who might be yearning for a moment of comfort or delight. Perhaps, if we learn from this example, the legacy of that radiant smile at Wansbeck Hospital will live on. And that in itself is a reason to keep hope alive for us all.